Los Angeles, California. March 15, 1971. The sign above the door read, "Ray's Pawn and Loan, We Buy Everything," in faded red letters that had been there since 1958. Inside, Ray Morrison sat behind a bulletproof glass partition, counting cash from the morning's transactions. Ray was 52 years old, thick around the middle, with permanent stubble on his jaw and reading glasses perched on his nose. He'd owned this shop on Sunset Boulevard for 13 years. In that time, he'd seen everything. Desperate housewives pawning wedding rings, addicts selling stolen electronics, and countless musicians, endless musicians, trying to convince him their beat-up guitars were worth fortunes. They never were. The door chime rang. Ray looked up and saw a young man walk in, carrying a guitar case. Here we go again, Ray thought. The man was thin, almost frail, with long hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in days. He wore bell-bottom jeans with holes in the knees, a paisley shirt that had seen better years, and boots that were falling apart. His face was gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes. Broke musician. Probably hadn't eaten in 2 days. Ray had seen 1,000 of them. The young man approached the counter and set the guitar case down gently, like it contained something precious. "Afternoon," he said. British accent, soft-spoken, polite. "What can I do for you?" Ray asked, not looking up from his cash count. "I need to sell this guitar," the young man said. "I'm a musician. It's a good instrument. I need $200. Ray finally looked up. "For what?" "Rent," the young man said simply. "I'm behind 2 months. Ray sighed and gestured for him to open the case. The young man unlatched it carefully. Inside was an acoustic guitar, a Harmony Sovereign H.60 12-string, sunburst finish, scratched and worn, with pick marks on the body and fretwear on the neck. Ray had seen this model before. Retail price, when new, maybe $150. Used, beat up like this, $40 tops. "It's a good guitar," the young man said quietly. "I've played it on recordings. It means a lot to me, but I'm desperate. I really need the money." Ray picked up the guitar, examined it with the practiced eye of someone who'd appraised thousands of instruments. Neck slightly warped, action too high, finish worn down to bare wood in places, strings old and corroded. "It's beat up," Ray said flatly. "I'll give you $50. The young man's face fell. "50? But it's worth more than that. I've played this guitar on—" "I don't care what you think it's worth," Ray interrupted, setting the guitar down. "I don't care what you've played it on. Every musician who walks through that door thinks their guitar is special. They all have stories. I played this at Woodstock. Hendrix touched this guitar. This is vintage, man. It's gonna be worth millions." He shook his head. "It's always the same story, and the guitar is always worth $50. The young man's jaw tightened. You could see him trying to maintain dignity while desperation clawed at him. "I have an album coming out," he said quietly. "In a few months. When it does, this guitar will be worth something. I'm not nobody. My name is David Bowie." Ray had heard this before, too. The "I'm about to be famous" speech. Last month, some kid claimed he was in a band called the Eagles. Month before that, someone swore he was going to be the next Bob Dylan. They all said the same thing. "Just wait. You'll see. I'm going to be huge." And Ray never saw them again. "Yeah," Ray said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "You and every other dreamer in Los Angeles. Look, kid, David, whatever your name is, I'm running a business here, not a charity, not a bank for broke musicians. $50. Take it or leave it." The young man, David Bowie, stood there for a long moment. You could see the humiliation settling into his shoulders, the shame of needing money so badly that he'd sell something that clearly mattered to him, the degradation of being mocked while desperate. "Fine," he said quietly. "I'll take it." Ray counted out 5 $10 bills and slid them under the glass partition. Bowie took the money, folded it carefully and put it in his pocket. Then he pulled out a scrap of paper and a pen. "I'm writing down my contact information," Bowie said, his voice steady but cold now. When my album comes out, when people know who I am, I'm going to buy this guitar back for $500. $500 for a $50 guitar. Because it's worth more than you think. He slid the paper under the glass. Ray glanced at it. An address in West Hollywood, a phone number, the name David Bowie written in neat handwriting. Ray smiled condescendingly. Sure, kid. When you're famous, give me a call. Bowie looked at him for a long moment, then he turned and walked out. The door chimed shut. Ray picked up the piece of paper, glanced at it once more, then crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. Another broke musician with big dreams and empty pockets. He'd forget about this kid in an hour. 1 year later, April 1972. Ray Morrison was watching television in the back office of his pawn shop when the image on screen made him stop mid-bite of his sandwich. A young man with bright orange hair, wearing makeup and a glittering jumpsuit, was performing on some British music show. The caption at the bottom read, David Bowie, Starman. Ray's sandwich fell onto his desk. That face. Those eyes. The soft British accent when he spoke between songs. No, it couldn't be. But it was. The skinny, desperate kid who'd sold his guitar for $50 a year ago was on television, and he wasn't just famous, he was massive. The host was calling him the future of rock and roll. The audience was screaming like he was Elvis. Ray sat frozen, staring at the screen. David Bowie, the name he'd dismissed, the contact information he'd thrown away. No. Oh, God. No. The realization, over the next few months, David Bowie exploded into global superstardom. The rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars became one of the biggest albums in the world. Bowie was on every magazine cover, every music chart, every television show that mattered. And Ray Morrison sat in his pawn shop staring at the Harmony Sovereign guitar hanging on the wall among dozens of other instruments. The guitar he'd bought for $50, the guitar that had belonged to David Bowie. The guitar that was now worth, conservatively, $10,000. Maybe more, maybe much more. And the contact information that could have let him sell it back to Bowie for $500? Thrown in the trash a year ago, Ray tried everything to reach Bowie. He called record labels. He wrote letters to Bowie's management company. He even tried showing up at a concert with the guitar, hoping to get backstage. Nothing worked. Finally, 6 months after Ziggy Stardust exploded, Ray got a response. A secretary from Bowie's management called the shop. "Mr. Morrison," she said, her voice professionally cold, "I'm calling on behalf of David Bowie. We understand you've been attempting to contact him regarding a guitar you purchased from him in 1971. Ray's heart leaped. Yes, I have the guitar. I want to sell it back to him. He said he'd pay $500, but honestly, given what it's worth now, I think we could negotiate. Mr. Bowie isn't interested in purchasing the guitar," the secretary interrupted. Ray's stomach dropped. "What?" "But he said, Mr. Bowie remembers your transaction quite clearly," she continued. "He remembers that you valued his guitar at $50. He remembers that you laughed at him when he said he'd be famous. He remembers that you threw away his contact information." Silence. "Mr. Bowie says that if you valued his guitar at $50 when he needed help, then that's what it's worth to him now. He suggests you keep it as a reminder." "A reminder of what?" Ray asked, his voice barely a whisper. "A reminder," the secretary said, "that cynicism has a cost." The line went dead. Ray Morrison never sold the guitar. He hung it on the wall of his shop in a locked glass case with a small plaque beneath it. "The guitar I bought from David Bowie for $50 when I didn't believe in him. Customers would ask about it. Collectors would offer him money. $20,000? $50,000? Eventually, 6 figures. Ray refused every offer, because the guitar wasn't worth money to him anymore. It was worth something else, a lesson he paid for with humiliation and regret. 20 years later. 1991. Ray Morrison was 72 years old now, still running the pawn shop, though slower, more tired. A young musician, couldn't have been more than 22, walked in carrying a guitar case. Thin kid, long hair, desperate eyes. Ray recognized the look immediately. He'd seen it 1,000 times. "I need to sell this," the kid said, setting the case on the counter. "It's a good guitar. I've played it at some gigs. I need money for rent." Ray looked at the kid. Then, he looked at the guitar and the glass case on the wall. Then, back at the kid. "How much do you need?" Ray asked quietly. $200. Ray opened the case. The guitar inside was beat up, scratched, and the strings were old, worth maybe $60. Ray pulled out his wallet and counted out $200. "Here," he said, sliding the money across the counter. The kid's eyes widened. "Wait, you didn't even appraise it. Don't you want to?" "I know what it's worth," Ray said. $200. Because you said so, and because I believe you." The kid stared at him confused. "Keep the guitar," Ray said. "The money's a loan. Pay me back when you can. If you can't, that's fine too. Just promise me something." "What?" "When you make it, and maybe you will, maybe you won't, but if you make it, remember this moment. Remember that someone believed in you when you needed it, and pass that forward." The kid's eyes filled with tears. "I don't understand. Why are you doing this?" Ray looked at the guitar on the wall. David Bowie's guitar, the one he'd bought for $50 from a desperate young musician he'd mocked and dismissed. "Because," Ray said quietly, "I learned a long time ago that cynicism costs more than kindness, and I'm tired of paying that price." Ray Morrison died in 1998 at the age of 79. In his will, he left specific instructions. The David Bowie guitar was to be donated to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, with the plaque still attached. It sits there today in a climate-controlled case worth an estimated $250,000, but the plaque is what people remember. "The guitar I bought from David Bowie for $50 when I didn't believe in him." And beneath that, in smaller letters added by the museum, a reminder that the cost of cynicism is always higher than the price of faith. David Bowie never publicly commented on the guitar or Ray Morrison, but in 1997, 1 year before Ray died, an anonymous donor paid off the mortgage on Ray's pawn shop. The payment came through a law firm in New York, no name attached, just a note, for the guitar and the lesson. Ray knew who sent it, and he cried for the first time in 20 years, because some lessons, once learned, change everything. And some guitars are worth more than money. They're worth the price of becoming a better person.